How was the debate? What'd you think? Who won?
I'm going to give you my big boomerang roundabout take. Ready?
All right.
I actually think Walz won.
Okay.
The reason why I think that is I actually think that Vance had better formal stage presence when it came to bobbing and weaving and answering questions. I think Vance actually did a phenomenal job redirecting and pivoting from everything that they were trying to pin on him, from either him or Trump. I think he did a really good job at that. I don't think Walz had like as banger of a performance as Dems would have wanted. Walz is very, very good in a casual setting. I think he excels there. In a formal setting, especially in the beginning, I don't think he excels as much. And he's also they're back to the thing where they're like trying to rattle off a whole bunch of policy points, which I don't think is as effective. I think they just need punchy slogans more. But I don't think that the Trump fan base gives a to see Vance on stage like being cordial and agreeing with Walz. So in a roundabout way, even though I think Vance technically had the better performance, I don't think that this increases turnout or exuberance on the conservative side, and I don't think it's driving up negatives on the Walz side. So I think that it's either a wash, it's either a wash, or I think Walz comes out slightly ahead just because of the type of delusional, insane fan base Trump has built for himself. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, well, before Peace Code and Conaboy give their terrible, and now I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm still undecided. There's no question that Vance had the better polish, that he was the better performer. However, I think that Walz gave excellent answers on abortion, healthcare, gun control, and particularly on January 6th when he redirected the question, which is who won the election. It's such an obvious question with an obvious answer. I didn't expect him to ask Vance that question. And I don't think Vance was expecting that question either because he didn't seem prepared for it, but he probably should have been.
That's true, but because conservatives can rewrite history, even if it's on video, can rewrite everything. All he has to do is redirect to the Hillary Clinton, redirect to Russiagate, redirect to all of that. And despite the fact that Trump's campaign did collude with Russia, despite the fact that Trump's campaign did benefit from actual Russian hackers leaking media, despite the fact that Trump's campaign does enjoy both institutional coverage and coverage on X in the form of JD Vance's stuff getting banned when it was leaked there's always a redirect for conservatives to avoid facing the music. They never have to live in reality.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
And Vance, no, I was going to say, and Walz didn't give the knockout rebuttal to that you would have, or even I would have, like, had you been better prepared for it. But he did, make the points that, like, listen, there is a false equivalence. No Democrat has done what Trump did. I don't run Facebook. January 6th wasn't a Facebook ad. I think it was a pretty good answer to that. And the fact that happened at the end of the debate, I think rescues it for Walz for me. Like, had that been, at the beginning of the debate, and Walz didn't have that knockout performance at the last, I would have probably comfortably said that Vance won the debate. But because that happened at the very end, it kind of like revived it for me. So I'm still torn on it. But
I don't know if I like that answer, that I don't run Facebook, because it felt like he was. Oh, there were two really big problems. One, I don't like that answer. I don't run Facebook, because he made it sound like that Democrats were censoring people on Facebook. I think there are better ways to address that talking point, right? That like the kid that you discipline the most in class is the one that makes the most noise. It's not our fault if conservatives get dinged more on misinformation when you guys don't believe in, the results of the last election that happened under Trump, or when you don't believe in the vaccine that Donald Trump pushed, right? I think these are way better redirects than just saying, well, it wasn't us. And Trump was the only candidate that, for personal reasons, made a direct request to a social media company to take something down because it hurt his feelings. I think that always needs to be front and center. Trump made that request. No equivalent request, to my knowledge, has ever come from any other administration.
Well, I just want to say, no, I totally agree with you. Even in the grand scheme of things, that was a suboptimal answer. Even the January 6th knockout blow, that was good for Walz. And I think it was good for most Democratic politicians because, quite candidly, I don't think most Democratic politicians and most Republican politicians are particularly good debaters compared to Twitch poll debaters, for example.
You guys are all debate perverts. You don't understand the politics of joy.
Maybe Buttigieg or Newsom would have been able to deliver that sort of answer, Stephen. I totally agree. But I think when we talk about Kamala Harris having a good debate, it really wasn't in the grand scheme of things. That was like a C, D tier performance as far as Twitch poll is concerned, but it was good for a sitting politician whose, formal profession is not actually debating. So that's what I mean.
Sure. I think Kamala actually did okay. Wait, real quick, but there was one other thing that I thought was a really I don't know if he just wasn't aware of it, but he gave a really bad answer on that censorship thing. He said, "We'll fire in a crowded theater," and he talked about hate speech. The original context of that quote, where that got spread around on X had to do with it had to do with Walz talking about not engaging in election interference. That's against the law. He just had to say that. Hey, when I talked about this legal speech, it's discouraging people from voting, giving bad information about where to vote at the polls. That's already illegal. It's not a First Amendment violation.
I'm sorry. Before Econo Boy in peace, can somebody send me the timestamp, because I'm sure it's out there, of Steven listening to Walz say that he's friends with school shooters?
Oh no!
I just want to see.
Based. Okay, that was based.
I just gotta see his reaction to it.
Best moment.
All right,
we beat Medicare. Yeah. Now we've got I became friends with school shooters, and that'll be it. Those are the two best quotes of the presidential debate season so far.
Listen, you got to be friends with a school shooter. He was a teacher. You don't want him shooting up your classroom. Damn, I want to be in. I want to be with Mr. Walz. His classrooms are always safe.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that. I think that Tim Walz did. Pisco, and I've talked about this before. I think the debates are, on the presidential side, mostly about beating expectations. It's one of the reasons why Trump can stand on stage and just not himself, and he'll have 45% of people say he actually did really good. But then Kamala goes on stage and maybe takes a little bit too long to answer a certain question. All of a sudden, 40% of people right off the bat write her off and say, "Oh, she did horribly."
Trump regularly makes statements that if Biden would have made them, every single one individually would have been a call to step down. That answer that he gave about what policy would you use to end childhood poverty on that to that economic forum, that would have been the end of Biden's campaign if he had given a public answer like that.
Yeah, and I think Walz. I think a lot of people had high expectations for Walz. Such a high energy sort of VP candidate. Very, very. He's the only. I think Kamala eventually became net positive favorability. She's kind of hovering 50-50 right now, but Walz has sort of consistently been high favorability. So a lot of people had expectations. I think Josiah, even you on Live and Learn, were saying I expect Walz to blow JD Vance out of the water. And Pisco brings up Pisco, you brought up a data point, which was about 78% of people on Polymarket expected Walz to win the debate. And that just wasn't what happened, right? Walz stumbled a lot and didn't give great answers to a lot of stuff. And he had this weird sort of habit where he would quickly lose his train of thought where, we're going to raise the taxes. He would just take a little bit too long to say that last one. That doesn't look
nervous. Good. It was his first time in DGG.
Exactly, right?
Remember your first time Econo Boy in the Destiny's Room channel? Were you nervous?
Okay, I did great. No.
Listen, I want to say some good things about JD Vance, if that's okay with you, Econo Boy.
It's not okay.
He's a debate studier. He goes into the fire. He's battle tested.
He's online.
That's one of the reasons why I think that and this doesn't necessarily apply to Tim Walz, but just Democrats in general. I feel like I'm not saying this, this might have been strategy from Walz. It could be something else. But I think a lot of Democrats kind of rest on their laurels. They kind of rest on their Trump talking points, and they're not super agile because they don't go to the fire and they don't actually have these interactions with MAGA that are acrimonious. And so I think that the fact that JD Vance has been, over the course of the last few months, constantly going after presser. He has honed his skills, and it showed tonight. That's one thing I'll say. Said, the dude absolutely is Rizless. I hope that we all agree on that. That anytime he's I know a woman, and that woman had an abortion. I know it was whatever that was. That is not coming across. And so, yes, if I'm assessing the debate in terms of who was the most effective messenger given the fundamentals of where they started, JD Vance takes the edge. I don't think that that's the metric we look to see who wins. If we look to the purpose of the debate being to move people or to get people or to secure your electorate or something, I think that it's much more of a wash and much more of a potential for the tone to matter more than the actual rhetoric.
Well, there's no significant downside to either person's debate performance today, and I think that's really the most important thing to kind of secure in these debates. It was probably never the case that one person was going to give such an outstanding vice presidential debate performance that it was really going to move the needle. But there weren't incredibly substantially damaging clippable moments from either person. The friends with school shooter things is so funny though. It's going to be
good.
It's going to be a great meme for the rest of our lives.
Look better than Kamala. So I think that this was a tactical loss. Wait, can I get some copiums in the chat? Kamala Harris's victory will look so good because Tim Walz purposely. Okay. But like for real, like I don't think that those who are like all on board on the Vance pill, I think they're going a little bit too overboard. I don't think that the American people are as debate pilled as we are, and I think that we need to step a little bit out of our echo chamber.
Wait, I don't know what you mean when you say debate pilled.
Like, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily about how good you are at deflecting, how good you are at like.
I think it's absolutely. If we were debate pilled, then it would be like Vance did horrible. He deflected on every point and he didn't answer with substance. Any single thing ever. It was insane how illegitimate all those answers were and invalid. He engaged in logical fallacies. That's being debate pilled. Looking at a politician who's going, oh, he managed to avoid every. Well, oh yeah, well he avoided answering for any of Trump's crimes. I mean that in a metaphorical sense, his crimes. He pivoted to every important talking point. He managed to slide away from all of the insane shit. I missed it, like the eating the cats and the dogs, more or less the J6 stuff he kind of got away from. He managed to slide away from all the crazy rhetoric over the disaster relief lately. The fact that Trump has literally threatened to withhold relief and that all the governors are thanking Biden for stepping up. I think Vance got away with almost everything. He managed to stay on point. He sane washed Trump's campaign like crazy and himself to some extent. I think I'm not being debate pilled when I say I think he did a pretty good job at coming off as like a normal, like I think they're like, here's the worry. There might be Republicans that are looking at like the Trump Vance ticket like crazy because Vance is a blubbering buffoon and Trump is a little bit crazy, you got to admit. But seeing Vance on stage tonight, maybe it felt a little bit pensish and you're like, there's a little bit of sanity here. It's okay. That's the biggest fear, I think.
JD Vance didn't take the bait as well. That was the biggest critique coming out of the Trump-Harris debate, was she would say some shit she knew would trigger the fuck out of Trump, and he would just talk for like 90 seconds of his 120 seconds about crowd sizes or whatever nonsense. There was a moment in the debate, for instance, where Walz said, this guy said, it was okay to make up stories if it meant, to his political advantage. And JD Vance just like doesn't address that Walz said that. He just moves past it, keeps talking about how illegals are coming into the country and spreading fentanyl across our communities. He stays on message. And again, it's almost easier for Vance to have a good debate performance because again, everyone's compared, I think, ultimately to Donald Trump if you're a Republican. It's like, oh, you see a Republican on stage that's actually able to stay on message and not actually himself on stage. Wow, he did so good. And that's the sort of curve that Republicans are graded on. So my prediction would be that, I don't know, 55% of people who watch the debate say that JD Vance won it. 40% say Walz and 5% are unsure or something like that. And, it probably doesn't move.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a huge needle mover. I do think there is an issue too with the format. I feel this way when I debate conservatives, and there's no way to obviously set this up fairly, but conservatives thrive in environments where they get to answer questions in a long, uninterrupted manner because they can just lie with impunity. They're never held to account. They can lie about every single thing they say or do. They can lie about Trump's record, which Vance did tonight. They can lie about the facts of the matter, which Vance did tonight, and you're never held to account for it, right? Like
you're only saying that because of your debate last night where your opponent had a 45-minute opening.
Yeah, no, I mean, I literally just said that. Yeah, I feel that in my own debate format. So that's why I don't like debating conservatives. You should be able to interrupt a conservative because they lie like they breathe, effortlessly and without thought. And if you allow a conservative to just ramble off a whole bunch of they'll rewrite history in front of your face. It's 1984 where you're at war with a different country halfway through the sentence of the party leader. That's how Republicans function. And if nobody's there to call them out on it, then yeah, you can whitewash or sane wash so much of the history of their record in office, and it's unreal.
Is Walz in some way responsible for that? Because he did say, I agree with this and I agree with that. And in a way he is like, shouldn't he be more aggressive? Shouldn't he be more acrimonious?
Yeah, but it's really hard to be aggressive when the other guy's being so, what would we say, magnanimous? When the other guy's being like decently, like imagine like Vance says like, wow, Walz, I just want to hold on real quick. I didn't know that your son, saw that shooting. That was tragic. And then Walz is like, well, you Republicans, you don't do anything about gun violence. Like you would look unhinged. You can't. Yeah.
You cannot let the rage flow through you, Pisco. You must control your anger.
That's why it kind of seemed like I didn't know who was trying to out nice each other, or like if they both went into the debate trying to be more magnanimous, because Walz was very positive throughout the entirety of that debate. And I wonder if they were both going in with that strategy and it just kept on going like,
well, it's part of, that's been part of Walz's success and why his favorability ratings are so high. The reason Vance did it obviously is because he has to make up ground. I mean, his his favorabilities. I think he's negative 11 points, or at least prior to this debate. So it makes sense why he did what he did. I mean, for me, and there's a risk I'm talking out my ass here because I can't quite remember the specifics of the question, but one shocking moment to me, or one like illustrative moment, was the questions about the timeline, for example. So when they turned to Walls and they said, hey, listen, 35 years ago you went to China and you said recently that you went at this point instead of that point. And then
I misspoke. I'm sorry. Like, what did
No,
you say?
hold on. No, that wasn't the joke that Josiah was making. The joke is, why the f- are you asking this question? What the
right, exactly.
True.
In 1983, on a touch-tone phone, on a rotary phone, we intercepted a conversation where you told your niece that you actually got her a $40 Barbie doll, and we actually went to Walmart and we pulled the receipts, and it was only $24.99. So
It's so
why did you?
fucking true. And they didn't follow up. They followed up on that one and gave him the most awkward pause. Of
Oh
all
yeah,
time.
and they let it hang. They let it hang. He finished his answer, and they sat there and they just stared him down. It was like an Anything Else episode. Holy shit. It was like, Jesus Christ.
And the next question, I thought it was going to be parody. They're like, Mr. Vance, you called Trump Hitler. And they didn't follow up on that at all.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. Like the juxtaposition, like, yeah, the follow up is okay. So moving forward in the timeline, 31 years.
Yeah.
JD Vance
To something substantive, by the way, to the current president that's running, right? Now, if Walls had said he was the tank guy, he was like, yeah, so I noticed that 34 years ago, you said you were out buying groceries and then you stopped the tanks or whatever. Like, then I can understand he's lying about some crazy history, but like, Jesus Christ. Or like, yeah, I was defending kids getting slaughtered in Tiananmen Square.
The thing is, okay, the
hang on.
moderators.
No, wait a minute.
Moderators.
We gotta.
Yeah.
What was I want to say the question was like, you said it was July, but we went back and
It was in
checked.
spring, but
It
he
was
said it was in
August.
spring, but it was in summer. Yeah, it's just stupid.
You guys are totally right. The moderators, because the first minute and 20 seconds of his answer was just fine, but it was the moderators that just made it so awkward by following up. He's like, well, I just missed. It's like, what is he supposed to say? He's already
He
answered
could do
the
that
question.
better. He should have been like, guys, the American people have more pressing issues than this misspeak that I did that many years ago. This is a ridiculous question. Or I don't know. Like, how can you make that any more weird than he did?
Well,
The problem is that the media is obsessed with appearing unbiased. That's the issue. And Republicans, they conduct themselves like children. Again, you've got like two people who enter a room, one literally has himself and smeared some of the fecal matter across his face, and the other guy, forgot to comb his hair, and then somebody tells you need to give the exact same level of critique to both of these people about their appearance, and there's just no way to do that without it being insane. And that's it's insane. It's insanity.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised certain issues. I don't know. Maybe it's just because they fell out. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they focus tested things and they just realized these things weren't good talking points. But like, things like Walls' military record didn't come up. He never mentioned price controls. That stuff didn't come up either, which is kind of surprising. I mean, that seemed like, at least for a decent chunk of time, that seemed like the main criticism of Vance and the Kamala sort of policy platform. Those two things, and in both debates, those things didn't come up. So kind of surprising, but maybe Vance didn't think it would play very well.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. The false parody is something that I am really struggling with, and I do think that people should comment on that more. JD Vance lost his shit when they fact checked him about the Haitian migrants, and again, it's one of those things that they didn't spend a lot. They didn't.
You
really
said you wouldn't fact check. It's
yeah.
the
Answer to that, like now, Nora,
come on, what are we doing
Nora,
here?
Margaret, you said you wouldn't do that, guys. I mean, come on, I got to respond to that. Like, it's so weak. But it'll be interesting to see what right-wing media does with this, because I just saw a thing of Megyn Kelly losing her on CBS for
He's gone off
fact checking.
deep end.
Dude, she's unhinged at the moment. So what do you think, Stephen? What do you think? Are they going to say that this was a blowout for Vance and that the moderators were in the bag
Obviously.
for Walls? What do you think is the talking point?
It's either a blowout for Vance or the moderators were rigged, right? So it depends on so we just have to see what the MAGA talking points on Twitter are. I guess. What time is it right now in Moscow? Are they awake yet to give the next set of marching orders?
I was lazy.
What was lazy?
Also-
You have to stop accusing everyone of being a Russian plant, Stephen.
First of all, Benny actually was, number one. And number two, Tim Pool, who runs one of the largest political podcasts in the United States and the world right now, hasn't accounted for, taken accountability for, or reckoned with the fact at all that he got paid half as much money as Hunter Biden did in the 10 years that he worked for Burisma in 1 year doing content for a Russian plant shell organization. No, I'm going to bring that up all the time. And if they don't like it, they can sue me. That's what they keep threatening to do. That's the only reason I go hard on that Benny is because he keeps saying he'll sue people. So did Glenn Greenwald. So I'll just keep saying it until somebody does it. Otherwise, they can off. That's insane. Well, it's crazy.
Tim Walz sued someone.
What?
Tim Walz sued. Oh wait, did I say Tim Walz?
Tim Pool.
Yes, you did.
Oh my God.
Shut
I have Tim Walz
mouth,
syndrome.
How dare you?
Oh God.
Christ.
What's wrong with me? No, Tim Pool actually did sue Kamala's campaign though. So you just gotta be careful.
I saw that.
All right? I don't want you to be sued.
Well, I've got Pisco to represent me.
Yep.
Hey, did
I
you
do
also
want to be
catch
sued.
how?
It would be good content.
Did you also catch how JD Vance walked back his logic in a certain respect? So like he kept saying, Harris is vice president now. Why can't she snap her fingers and make it happen? She's vice president now. Make it happen. And then when Trump's failures were brought up, then he wanted to appeal the separation of powers. He's like, listen, just because you're president doesn't mean that you can just snap your fingers and sign things into law. You got to you got to negotiate things with Congress. It's shit like that really gets under my skin, because we hear this refrain from MAGA Republicans. I hear it all the time. Harris is in charge right now. She's really not, but she's in charge right now. She could just make it happen. But by that logic, Donald Trump is objectively less fit to be president because he got less of his agenda accomplished than Biden Harris got of theirs. So I don't like. There's two things that they run from that I don't like. One is this: why hasn't Kamala made it happen? It's the vice president. You have no direct role. But if you want to say, well, what about the administration? The administration has made a lot of things happen. Like all of the major legislation that was passed under the Biden administration are things that actually happened. Like you can't pass infinite legislation. What else do you want to do, right? Like you can only do so much. And like you said, Trump was president for 4 years. He made nothing happen. So why would we with both halves being owned by the Republicans, he made nothing happen. So why we would expect that to change? Yeah, he had a greater share of government than Biden Harris ever did, because he also had a sympathetic Supreme Court. Biden Harris had, control of both chambers of Congress during their first 2 years, like Trump did of his, but they also had to go up against a hostile Supreme Court from the very beginning. So Trump had even less excuse not to get his accomplished. And I do think Walz made the point, because Vance tried to suggest that Trump strengthened Obamacare and tried to protect Obamacare. Oh my God. That rewriting, that needs to be you need to get screamed down. It was only McCain, who is hated, by the way, universally by Republicans now, by the mag-tarded people, okay? It was only McCain that prevented the ACA from being completely destroyed. And the idea that now conservatives want to try to take credit for parts of it, for pre-existing conditions?
It's even worse, Stephen.
That's disgusting.
They were in court. They were all in court, and the Trump administration was arguing that the Affordable Care Act was unconstitutional because they got rid of the tax penalty for the individual mandate. Mm-hmm. Trump was in court asking the court to delete the ACA. So it's like
during COVID,
in the run up to the election, while Amy Coney Barrett was being considered as a Supreme Court nominee.
Well, it's also bizarre because I feel like the Republican sort of caucus behavior should be pointed out more. Like, for instance, on paid family leave as an example, right? JD Vance pretends to be in favor of that on the debate stage. Oh yeah, that's something that we could work on. Republicans had an opportunity to support a package that included paid family leave. 95% of Democrats, which is to say literally everyone besides Joe Manchin, supported it. 0% of Republicans supported it, right? None of them supported it. None of the Republicans supported the expansion of the child tax credit. They didn't support, protecting access to IVF. They certainly don't support reinstating Roe v. Wade. It's this weird double standard that you see from some far left people and also Republican actors, where it's like, why aren't the Democrats doing anything about this? Like, guys, 95% of Democrats would support all of these things. We can't get any Republicans to support any of these things.
It's true, but there needs to be I knew a 12-year-old who and then she got, and they have to a partial birth. It's so wordy. They just need punchier ways to get these points across. And I wish that it wasn't such a long format, just to ask questions, right? Would you support a state banning the right of a person to own a pistol? No. Would you support a state banning the right of a 12-year-old girl from getting an abortion? Yes, you want to put more regulations on the latter than the former. It has to be like punchy, short things like that the other person is forced to contend with, rather than these like wordy, mouthy anecdotes and all these like just like make it short and punchy. They have to do a better job at this. I don't know why they ramble on so many points so much. It's so ugh. Also, how embarrassing that you have Donald Trump is literally selling all of these things while he's running for office. What is that called? Using the trappings of office? It's not technically like a scandal. It's not technically incorrect or wrong, but like you should be. And the biggest problem with conservatives is that you guys feel no shame. Like that's the biggest issue. Like you could walk into a room and then I could find you like pulling your, entirely erect 3.5-inch out of a tiny dog while it lays there bleeding and screaming. And then I could look at you and be like, bro, what the is wrong with you? And you're like, I was horny, I guess. Huh, whatever. And then you just walk away like it's normal. Like that's the kind of person a Trump voter is. They have no shame, no accountability, no responsibility, no obligation to live in reality. You guys are unhinged. Like how I would myself if I was supporting a guy that was selling 100. Wait, are these this is the first edition? Are these the recent ones that he was selling too? Because he redid them. Subject to the terms and conditions here. The website offerings, including the digital trading cards, physical trading cards, and limited edition gold and platinum sneakers, are intended as collectible items for individual enjoyment only, not for investment purposes. The website offerings, including the digital trading cards, physical trading cards, and limited edition gold and platinum sneakers, are intended as collectible items for individual enjoyment only, not for investment purposes. The website offerings are not affiliated with any cryptocurrency offering or with World Liberty Financial, are not political, and have nothing to do with any political campaign. All of the stupid scam shit he's selling isn't even going towards helping him win the election. It's just shit that he's using to get rich on his own. How have to be to support this guy, to own like it's just unbelievable to me. Holy shit. You guys are unreal. You guys are unreal. Kamala Harris tomorrow could give a speech about the evils of sounding, and the next day conservatives would be lining up to shove glass tubes down their smash them, saying that they're owning the libs. You guys are unhinged. You're delusional.
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right, bye.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.